Italy still has farmhouses under $100,000, and in this video we're going through the best one for sale in every Italian region. From Tuscan hillsides and vineyard views in Piedmont to quiet countryside homes in Abruzzo and beyond, these properties show just how far your money can still go in Italy right now. None of these are complete renovation disasters. Some are move-in ready, others need a little work, but every property on this list brings something different to the table. Land, views, outdoor space, privacy, or that classic stone farmhouse feel people spend years dreaming about. 8 homes across 8 different regions, and we're working out which one actually delivers the best lifestyle for the price. A couple of these are way better than you'd expect for under $100,000, so let's get into it. Property 1, 75,000 euros, which lands at around $87,000, and we're opening in Umbria. One of those Italian regions that people who've actually spent real time in the country tend to love quietly without broadcasting it, because they'd rather it stayed affordable. Geographically, Umbria occupies the heart of the peninsula, a landlocked stretch of rolling green hills, medieval hilltop towns, and some of the clearest light anywhere in Central Europe, and the absence of a coastline keeps the crowds away, which is precisely the appeal. Castiglione del Lago sits on Lake Trasimeno, and this property is in the peaceful locality of Muffa, countryside Italy exactly as you're picturing it. Quiet roads, green hills, and the village reachable on foot or in 2 minutes by car. 2 levels of solid construction greet you from the exterior, a proper facade that looks like it belongs here because it does. The ground floor opens into a bright living room, anchored by a real fireplace, not decorative, genuinely the soul of the room, alongside an open-plan eat-in kitchen and a storage room. Upstairs delivers 2 spacious double bedrooms, a single bedroom, and a bathroom, giving you a proper 3-bedroom layout across 130 square meters, which is roughly 1,400 square feet. That's a comfortable amount of space for a couple, a small family, or someone who wants a guest room and a working room without compromise. And the listing describes the property as move-in ready, no major renovations required. Outside, 450 square meters of private garden, nearly 4,840 square feet, wrap around the house, and a 20 square meter annex holds a garage with extra storage, parking sorted, outdoor space for a Sunday lunch, a fireplace for January, 3 bedrooms, $87,000. That's your opening benchmark, and the reason to hold that number in your head is that the leader is about to change before the next property is even finished. Piedmont feels like a different country, nestled into the northwestern corner of Italy with the Alps curling around 3 sides. This is a region of deep valleys, serious wine country, and a quietly aristocratic countryside that shares almost nothing with the central Italian postcard, cooler, more forested, and largely ignored by anyone who doesn't already know it. The energy rewards people who want to be left alone in the best possible sense. Land per euro runs differently up here, and that matters. Property 2, 75,000 euros, the same $87,000 as Property 1, and the difference in what that number buys deserves your full attention. An independent farmhouse in Ponzone means no shared walls, no condominium rules, no management fees, and no neighbor's renovation schedule bleeding into yours. Across 2 levels, the ground floor delivers a large living area, a bathroom, and a bedroom, while the basement level adds a second bedroom with its own hallway, access, and a cellar. That covers the core living space, but the sale also includes a completely separate warehouse building, an additional structure to use as is, convert over time, or keep as covered storage and workspace. Partially restored is how the listing characterizes it, which means there's room to make it your own, though the structure itself is described as solid and livable. What changes everything, though, is the land. Approximately 6,200 square meters of private grounds come with the property, which works out to nearly 67,000 square feet, close to 1.5 hectares. Hold that against Property 1, same price, Umbria versus Piedmont. 4,840 square feet of garden against 67,000 square feet of private land. The front runner just changed, and if land is your metric, nothing we've seen so far comes close. But Property 3 carries a feature that almost nothing else on this list, and arguably in this country, offers at this price point, and it's worth stopping for. From here we drop south into Lazio, not Rome, not the tourist coast, but the inland hill country that unrolls in every direction from the capital and turns genuinely quiet very fast. Geographically, Lazio stretches from volcanic lakes and Etruscan ruins in the north to wild mountain valleys in the east, and the Rieti province sits right in that quieter eastern interior, ancient and unhurried and almost entirely off the international radar. Rivedutri belongs to that territory, a corner of Lazio that most visitors never reach, but that hikers, cyclists, and people hunting for authentic rural Italy tend to find and then quietly never leave. The locality of Apulegia sits in that zone, and that's where Property 3 comes in. Property 3, 78,000 euros, approximately $90,000, and this one arrives already restored. Carefully restored, according to the listing, with the rustic character preserved and modern comfort built in around it, and you feel that in every detail. Wooden beam ceilings overhead, a traditional fireplace anchoring the ground floor, a living room the listing describes as made for country-style relaxation, a functional kitchenette, and upstairs a bedroom and a shower bathroom. 58 square meters, around 625 square feet, makes this honest about what it is, a retreat rather than a compound, the kind of place that suits a writer, a remote worker, or a couple ready to leave wherever they currently are. 2 kilometers from town along a mostly paved road with a short gravel stretch at the end, and the listing calls it move-in comfortable. No major work standing between you and actually living there. None of that is what changes the calculation, though. Wrapped around the house, 4,380 square meters of mostly flat land, just over 47,000 square feet, includes a dedicated truffle ground, a working truffle ground. For anyone who understands what Italian black truffle means commercially or culinarily, or simply as something growing on land you own, that detail reframes the entire purchase. $90,000 buys you a restored farmhouse and a truffle operation in central Italy, and that combination doesn't come up twice. Property 4 is about to do something completely different to the concept of scale, and it starts with a mountain range most of the world drives past without slowing down. Property 4, 80,000 euros, around $92,000, and Campania is the setting. A region famous for Naples, the Amalfi Coast, and Pompeii, but one that also stretches inland into mountain ranges that the international property market has mostly ignored, and that's exactly where the value concentrates. The Alberni Range sits inland from the coast in a part of Campania that feels genuinely untouched, wrapped by national park land and ancient thermal springs, and this property sits 5 kilometers from the Postiglione motorway exit, 15 minutes from the thermal baths of Contorsi, and close enough to Salento National Park that the park functions as a backyard. Geography alone is doing serious work here before you've even looked at a floor plan. What the sale delivers is a complex of rural buildings, a main house with 3 rooms and a cellar, plus ruins of former stacked structures, all sitting on approximately 9,000 square meters of land, roughly 97,000 square feet, nearly a full hectare, in the mountains of southern Italy. The listing is straightforward about the ruins. Restoration potential exists, and not every square meter arrives turnkey, but the main house functions, and the overall complex is presented as well suited for a private countryside residence or a tourism project, whether that's a B&B, an agriturismo, or a rural retreat. For someone with a realistic plan and the patience to execute it, this property carries more ambition than anything else on this list. Salento National Park is your backyard, thermal baths is your local spa, $92,000 as the entry point. Property 5 pulls the register in a different direction entirely, and it involves stone, a garden you can actually use, and a city that more people should already be living near. Liguria deserves a moment before we land. That narrow strip of northwestern Italy, squeezed between the Alps and the sea, holds Italy's smallest mainland region, and one of its most dramatic stretches of geography, where hills drop almost vertically toward the Mediterranean. Stone villages cling to cliff faces, and the coastal light draws photographers from across the continent. Vara Superiore sits in the hills just back from that coast, and what Property 5 offers there earns genuine attention. Property 5, 85,000 euros, roughly $98,000, and this one arrives in original Ligurian stone. Real stone construction, not a renovation that gestures at it, but the actual thing. Connected to the public aqueduct, accessible by municipal road, and within walking distance of village services. This property sits in a completely sunny and private position, which the listing states directly and the details support. Wrapped around the house, a lawned garden of approximately 2,000 square meters, about 21,500 square feet, gives you outdoor space that functions rather than just exists. Step inside, and 200 square meters of living space unfolds across 2 levels, which works out to just over 2,150 square feet, spread across 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The listing calls it immediately habitable, and the finishes reflect the rustic identity of the building in a way that reads as intentional rather than incomplete. 10 minutes from the Fialo Pass, 1 hour from Genoa, and for a family this functions as a genuine primary residence, not a holiday compromise. For a remote couple, it offers more space than they'll likely ever fill, and a location most people only experience on vacation. Property 6 is about to introduce sea views, and that single detail tends to change the conversation. Property 6, 90,000 euros, around $104,000. And Abruzzo is the setting. A region that holds some of Italy's wildest national park terrain on one side and a long Adriatic coastline on the other. And this property sits right between those two worlds. Atessa occupies a panoramic hillside in the Chieti province, with views the listing describes as reaching toward the Adriatic Sea, and the coast itself sits 30 minutes away by car. That's not a poetic proximity, that's 30 minutes to an actual beach. Across multiple levels, the cottage delivers a living room, kitchen, and dining room on the ground floor, with 2 balcony bedrooms, a bathroom, and an additional toilet on the first floor, and usable under-roof space at attic level for storage or additional rooms. Detached from the main house, several annexes round out the property: a warehouse, a storage room with its own fireplace, and 2 outbuildings. The garden runs to approximately 530 square meters, just under 5,700 square feet, and roughly 3,000 square meters of additional land, around 32,000 square feet, extends beyond that. Partly furnished, water and electricity connected, immediately available according to the listing, with the heating system described as partially complete, which warrants a direct conversation before any offer. And the context here does real work. The Costa dei Trabacchi cycle path nearby, ski resorts within 90 minutes, Pescara Airport about an hour out, panoramic Adriatic views from the hillside, sea, mountains, coast, and countryside, all reachable from one address under $105,000. Listings at this level move. So do the homework if this one speaks to you. Property 7 is about to say one word that does something to people, and that word is Tuscany. Tuscany deserves a moment. Rolling golden hills, rows of cypress trees, wine estates, Renaissance hill towns, and an afternoon light that genuinely looks like a painting, because painters spent centuries trying to capture it. Torrita di Siena sits in the Val di Chiana, which is Tuscany, at its most recognizable, and Property 7 brings something that people spend entire careers planning toward. Property 7, 95,000 euros, about $110,000, and this is a portion of a traditional Tuscan farmhouse, semi-detached, free on 2 sides, positioned to catch natural light and hold its privacy, despite being part of a larger building. 100 square meters, about 1,076 square feet, keeps this focused and efficient rather than sprawling. Ground floor storage rooms and cellar spaces carry real customization potential, and an external staircase leads up to the main living floor where everything that matters happens. A porch, a living and dining room with fireplace, a semi-habitable kitchen, 3 bedrooms, a hallway, and a windowed shower bathroom. The listing describes the overall condition as good, and in the context of a traditional Tuscan farmhouse, at this price, that carries weight. Being direct about what semi-habitable kitchen means, you'll likely want to invest in that space, and the ground floor sits undeveloped, but the living floor functions and the property is described as ready to move into while you work out what to do with the rest. 500 square meters of private land, just over 5,380 square feet, surrounds it all, and the Val di Chiana countryside sits beyond that. 3 bedrooms, a fireplace, traditional stone character, $110,000. If that conversation about whether Tuscany is actually possible has lived in the back of your mind, this property answers it. Property 8, though, is the reason this list exists, and what it offers resets the entire ranking. One final region, Emilia-Romagna, just north of Bologna. This is the part of Italy that produced Parmigiano Reggiano, Prosciutto di Parma, Ferrari, and Lamborghini, a flat, fertile, deeply cultured stretch of northern Italy, running from the Po River Delta down to the Apennine foothills with some of the country's most livable mid-sized cities strung along its ancient Roman road. Ferrara sits 30 minutes north of Bologna, a UNESCO World Heritage City of Renaissance palaces and flat cycling streets. And Marrara is a village right at its edge. 8 is the reason to stay to the end. Property 8, 98,000 euros, approximately $113,000. And what that number delivers here is something no other property in this list comes close to matching. A farmhouse portion of approximately 250 square meters, about 2,690 square feet, split into two completely independent apartments, each with its own separate entrance, its own front door, its own life, running entirely parallel to the other. Apartment 1 opens into an entrance hall that leads into a bright living room, a kitchen, and 2 storage rooms, and upstairs 3 large double bedrooms, a spacious windowed bathroom with shower, and enough space to carve out a second bathroom if needed. Apartment 2 carries its own entrance hall, living room, a kitchen with a second independent access from outside, a pantry, storage rooms, and upstairs 2 double bedrooms and a windowed bathroom with bathtub. Across both units, that adds up to 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 kitchens, 2 living rooms, and 2 completely independent front doors. Beyond the apartments, a 2-level cellar with its own fireplace, a warehouse, a large garden, and approximately 5,250 square meters of arable land, over 56,500 square feet, more than half a hectare, round out the purchase. The listing is direct that modernization works are needed, and that's real. None of this arrives turnkey. But here's the thing. The roof has been recently and fully maintained, which matters more than almost any other single factor when evaluating a rural property, because a sound roof separates a solid investment from a money pit. The bones hold up. And for $113,000, you walk away with 2 independent living units, over half a hectare of land, storage, a warehouse, and a location, minutes from Ferrara with motorway access toward Bologna. No other property in this entire list puts 2 separate front doors in your hands at this number, and that optionality is what makes this one land differently. And depending on who's watching, extended families who want independence without distance will see one thing. Someone wanting to live in one unit and generate rental income from the other will see something else entirely. Always confirm the full scope of works and check all documentation before any offer. But if the concept fits your situation, this property earns serious attention. So here's where 8 properties across 8 regions leaves us, all under $115,000, all carrying real land, real character, and real lives waiting inside them. For sea views, the Atessa cottage in Abruzzo takes it, the Adriatic visible from the hillside, a coastal cycle path nearby, 30 minutes from the beach under $105,000. For raw land value, Ponzone in Piedmont, at nearly 67,000 square feet of private land for $87,000 is hard to argue against, though the Ferrara dual apartment property pushes back with over 56,500 square feet, plus 2 independent units. Most ready to move into family home goes to the Stone Farmhouse in Vara Superiore, Liguria, over 2,150 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, immediately habitable, $98,000. The wildest single feature on the entire list belongs to the Truffle Ground Farmhouse in Lazio for $90,000 because that detail simply doesn't repeat. And the property that breaks expectations most completely is the Ferrara dual apartment farmhouse, because 2 independent living units, plus more than half a hectare in the Bologna corridor under $115,000, doesn't come up in a normal search. Now here's what I want you to answer in the comments, and this is a genuine question. If $100,000 landed in your account today, which of these 8 do you actually choose? The Umbria fireplace house with the private garden, the Lazio truffle retreat, the Tuscan farmhouse you thought was out of reach, the Ferrara setup with 2 front doors and half a hectare. Drop it below